This week we're going to be looking into issue 8, where we'll explore the new psychic phase and how to use psychic abilities, plus some tips on how to build and paint your librarian. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to another episode in my series where I explore Warhammer 40,000 Conquest. Today's episode we go over issue 8, where we get a Primaris Librarian. Now librarians are very powerful psychers. Before we get into all that, let's just have a look at the model. So here's the bits, and it comes on 2 sprues this time, unlike the Lieutenant Calcius. So there's a bit more complexity to it and a lot more smaller fiddlier bits. You also have the option for a helmeted version and an unhelmeted version. Let's just clear that out, as you can see. Ooh. And yeah, he's got an awesome power sword and he's got tubes and everything. Let's crack on with the issue. So, first page, we are introduced to Space Marine Librarians. And over here we've got a little bit of fluff on them and what they do and how they're looked at by other Space Marines and feared and honoured. And then they have their force weapons, so weapons that they power with the power of the warp, that they channel through themselves. And of course you have staves and swords as well. And then we go on into more battles, so the defense of Phalius, where the Dark Angels are invaded by some demons of Khorne on their ship. And then we go into the build section, so I'll go over this with you. There's a few other bits that you might want to leave off until later on. It's entirely up to you, but if you want to be able to do a real good paint job later on, when you get more paints, then it is vital that you do leave them off. Or at least just blue tack them for the meantime. Then we go into painting it. So we'll blitz through that as well. And then we'll learn how to do psychic abilities. I'm looking forward to it. Because look, you've got your Reavers and your Plague Marines. Let's have a look through that. Aha, clear the deck. Right. 6 Boxwalkers, 2 units of 3 Plague Marines, 1 Primaris and 3 Reavers. Killed the Librarian, killed the Plague Marines. Ah, cool. And I like this, they shorthand it all. So all the weapons recaps are now a lot easier to reference. And then you got a little bit extra with an additional psychic ability and how to use the blind launchers in a different way too. Cannot wait for issue 10. But until then, let's crack on with the next section. Make sure that you familiarise yourself with the instructions and keep them handy as well. So I've got mine to the side here. Let's get cracking. So, as always, you want to clip out what you need for each stage so you don't get the pieces mixed up. And go by the number. So, you've got your 1 here, you've got your 2 here, and your 3 here, and so on and so forth. Make sure you put the flat side against the model and go as close as possible, like so. And once you have all the necessary pieces out, remember your mold line remover, get rid of the excess plastic from clipping them out, and if you do see any mold lines, you do away with them too. So once you've clipped out the bits you need and you've neatened them up with the mold line remover, you then want to start gluing the pieces together in the stages. If you do it like this, it gives it time for those pieces to dry enough so that when you add other bits to it, it doesn't fall apart while you're putting it all together. So first bits will be the legs with the lower abdomen, and then we'll put the front of the chest on afterwards. So you want to just find where it fits best, and then like so, see that? Right, so you put just a little bit of glue there. Remember, less is more. Remember, you don't want to squeeze it, you want to just let it come out on its own, otherwise the pressure change will make it loads of glue everywhere, and then you just waste it and it makes a mess. So that's the left leg on. So there you go, there's your leg test. It's standing. And there you go, nice and easy. Oh, fail. That's why you need to let pieces dry a little bit before you start gluing any more on. So there you go, and it's more balanced now because the weight is more evenly distributed, so it definitely stands flat. Okay, and then you just repeat for the rest of the parts. Just a quick side note about this piece, you have to make sure that you glue this piece on the inside of the back, like so, before you stick it on, otherwise you ain't going to reach that once the back piece is stuck together. Another useful tip is with the slight gap, while the glue is still dry, just run your finger over it, you know, if you got some spill out, and then with the mold line remover just go at a diagonal, gently scrape across the top, and what it will do, along with the softened plastic, because remember the glue melts the plastic slightly, because it's softened, you can sort of scrape it into the gap like so, and it'll fill it out so that once you paint it over you won't actually see any line there. Okay, so another tip is for when you want to future-proof this model, so if you want to be able to build it in a way that you can paint all the areas with the future paints that we'll get, then without any difficulty, of course, then there are some areas that you might want to skip over on the build. So the next section after doing all this would be to put these pipes on. I would suggest against it if you do wish to have access to all areas to paint. As you can see, they have a slight tab on them, okay? You do not want to get rid of those. You want to keep those on, okay? Right there, that's where you trim. Don't trim there. In short, if you want it to be easier to paint and look awesome, then keep the pipes here. You can always paint them on here. Be careful where you clip it as well. Make sure that you don't clip the tabs, and keep the purity seals out of the way as well. They can be done at a later date. They take 5 minutes to paint, so you haven't even got the right paints for them yet either. So just do the arms, the shoulder pads, blue tack the helmet in, or the head, because there's nowhere to put the helmet like I did with the Lieutenant Calcius. If you want to see what I mean, click this button right here. It will link you to the video where I built him and put the helmet on the side like so. Okay, and there we go. So this is what it will look like if you have decided to keep the pipes where they were and the other bits and pieces. I've also blue tacked it to the base just so I can pick it off and get in between the robes, and I've blue tacked the power pack as well so I can get around in between the pieces. But it looks good enough to go on the table right now, and here are the spare bits, so make sure you keep this nice and safe. And yeah, that's it. So let's get to painting. Right, so here in the painting section we will be painting the Librarian. Gotta make sure you have some tea, bickies for fuel, you'll need some fresh water, you'll need the paints as described in the book, something to use as a palette, some tissue, and your paintbrush. Alright, let's just skip right through it. So first bit is to paint the entire model in Macragge blue. Don't go more than halfway up your bristles. Add a touch of water to thin it nicely to smooth consistency, like so, and then start painting all over, like so. And of course, if you blue tack the base like I did, you'll be able to reach underneath like so. The next bit is Abaddon Black, and then you want to paint the cables and stuff like that. So these cables along here, like that, and the bits in between the armor. So the next stage is Retributive Armor, and that's going to be the details such as the shoulder pad rims, which you want to just glide the side of your brush along, and the little icons that denote him as the librarian. I'm gonna do this whole thing here, do the headgear as well, the chest aquila, like so. The next step is to put Agrax Earthshade, your first shade, all over the golden areas. Remember, put it on a palette, don't leave the pot open, don't be a noob, you're gonna spill it if you do. And yeah, just give a nice healthy coating on all the gold areas, making sure that it sits nicely in the recessed areas. You then want to get your lip belcher and just go over some other details like the keys, and if you see the little ports like that, let's get closer. Yeah, so like little ports like that, little buttons and dials, any of these ribbed cables as well. You want to do the length of the blade as well, so just be careful when you get to about here. Just really take your time with that bit, and the piping as well here. Get some non-oil shade and nice and heavily on the blade. Get those details. If it's too heavy, you can just move it around. You want to get the ribbed piping as well, all the silver areas that you've done basically. Notice that the design hasn't been painted yet, that's because this part is the messy bit, so you want to get this messy bit done first, and then we can go over that part nice and lightly with some gold. Okay, so last bit is Bogman's Glow. So once the non-oil is dry, you can paint the gold on that design of the blade, but until that dries you can skip right to painting the flesh on this chap's face. So remember, just water it down, get a nice point, and just paint it on. Not too bad. And here are some quick pictures just to show you what it looks like after you've done all the painting at this stage. And notice there are a few other details that I filled in, but it's up to you how you do those. And here's the sprue with the pipes and stuff on it as well. So in this week's tutorial section, we get to learn about using psychic abilities. Now, in order to do this, what you're going to need is 5 Plague Marines with 1 unit champion and the Librarian. You also need your range rules and your dice, and any additional rules that you may need from previous issues in the replay articles. So let's get to it. First of all, there's a brand new phase added to the mechanic of the game. As you can see here, straight after the move, you get the psychic phase before shooting phase. So for this issue, the special rules for the models that you will be using both in the tutorial and the replay section will be, well, for the Librarian, Smite Power, which we'll learn a bit about in a minute, and he also wields a Force Sword, which means that enemies that do have an armor save, so you put the Plague Marines, they will need to make a save of a 6 rather than their usual save. Also don't forget that Boxwalkers are wounded on a 3+, and Plague Marines are wounded on a 5+. But they both get disgustingly resilient, so they, no matter what, if they fail the armor save or don't have an armor save, they get a 5+ save. And also the Curse of the Walking Pox, where the Poxwalkers get to replenish their lost unit members if they eliminate other opponents. So in the psychic phase, what do? There's 3 stages to this. First of all, you choose a psyker, you choose a power. For this example, we'll go with Smite. Then you make a psychic test. It's very simple. You get 2 dice, you find out what the warp charge value is. In this case it's a 5. You roll those 2 dice, and if it's 5 or more, then it's passed. Smite does D3 mortal wounds. So what you do is you get a dice, you roll it, and whatever you roll, you half it and then round it up. In this case, the 2 becomes a 1. So here we have a handy chart to show you exactly how you divvy up the rolls. So you do 1 mortal wound, which would eliminate one of these from play if they didn't have Disgustingly Resilient. But of course this guy would have Disgustingly Resilient, so you'd roll for that and you would make it. Of course he would. Right, bloody Nurgle. There is another bit to it though. Perils of the Warp. If you are unfortunate and roll a double 1, or super lucky and roll a double 6, well actually it's kind of not that lucky, because these doubles will result in the psyker themselves taking a hit, and they will suffer D3 mortal wounds. So there is a little risk reward thing going on there. Also, you have to make sure, for example, if this was a unit over here and this was a unit over here, the psychic abilities automatically go towards the nearest enemy unit. So you wouldn't be able to target this unit, you'd have to target this unit. We have the replay mission, Clear the Deck. Now for this, you will need 2 units of Plague Marines. Boom, boom, boom. You're going to need all 6 of your Poxwalkers, like so. You're going to need your Librarian and 3 Reavers. We also, if you go back to the previous page, we have rules update. So we'll just run through this. The Librarian has a ballistic skill of 3 and a weapon skill of 3. To wound is 5 or 3, and that's for close combat and shooting. So for the Plague Marines it would be 5s, for the Poxwalkers 3s. He has 4 close combat attacks, which is quite awesome. He has a 3-up save, 5 wounds, so he's particularly tough, and 6 inch movement. And of course the Reavers, we've seen them before, same as the Poxwalkers and the Plague Marines as well. So in this scenario you set up as normal, so both players roll off. Whoever rolls the highest gets to deploy first. Whoever finishes deploying first goes last. There is some tips here as well for the Death Guard player. So the Librarian is a very dangerous enemy, but you only need to kill him to win the game. So that's the objective for the Death Guard, kill the Librarian. Use cover because you don't want to take wounds, you want to keep your troops so that you can kill him, and you don't want to get hit by that smite. It's very powerful. You also want to remember that he is a character, so unless he's the closest unit to you, you cannot target him with shooting. For the Space Marines, Similarly, Smite is very powerful, so use that to full effect, but you do not want to make him the closest enemy unit to the Death Guard. So make sure you screen him with the Reavers. And but yeah, he is very good in combat though, with the 4 attacks, and the 4 sword means that he can really cut through them easily. We do have some extra rules here. So all the weapons from the previous issues up until now have been short-handed, which is great, so you can use all of the special rules for all of the weapons. You also have an additional psychic ability called Might of Heroes. So a warp charge of 6, which means that you have to roll 6 or more. Any friendly model within 12 inches if it successfully rolls. Until the start of the next psychic phase, that model can make 2 additional attacks in close combat, so perfect for boosting those Reavers as they are already pretty good in combat. You can also use this with Smite in the same turn, because of course you can't use the same ability twice in a turn, but you can use additional abilities. So 6 for the warp charge, 12-inch range, target models gain 2 extra attacks. The Blight Launcher has an additional rules update, so it wounds on a 3+. In addition, as mentioned in replay missions 1 and 6, can make 2 shots in the shooting phase. The Space Marines must roll a 5+ to succeed the saving rolls, so it does a little extra damage there. And there we have it. Next issue, we are doing some more Poxwalkers. I want to go over some easy conversion ideas that you can do with those. That doesn't require any molding putty and extra stuff like that. So again, with the tools that have been given in this series so far, and we get to see what it's like to do bigger battles. So we're going to have larger units fighting each other. And then of course, issue 10 is the climax of the month. So I'm going to rush through the next one, get to this one as quick as possible. And there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Please do like the video and subscribe. Hit the little bell icon next to the subscribe button so that you get an update every time I upload a video. And if you do get any time as well, just comment below how you feel about these new rules, the series so far, the subscription so far, and what you think it could have to improve it, or what's lacking in it. And all my social media links are in the description below. Please feel free to join me on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, where I have regular updates and photos and pictures and stuff like that. Thank you very much for your time. Peace.